Attacking and capturing cities is a key part of Civ 6, and no matter what desired victory type you have, you're going to find yourself attacking a city or two in mini games, especially on higher levels. Let's talk through the details of making every city attack a successful one. It's best to start by scouting the location a bit, make sure you know what's around the city. This includes looking at the terrain, other cities, and encampments in particular. Make note of the hexes you want to keep units out of that might be attacked by multiple cities and encampments. Avoid these when you start moving your units in. You also want to look at the strength of the city, which is used to calculate combat results. You want to have military units with a comparable number, or you're going to have a difficult time taking that city. Also make note on its wall situation. Does it have walls already? This is shown by a blue bar on top of the green health bar of the city. Is it building walls? You can look at a city and see walls going up around the city if they're currently building them. If this is the case, plan for the city to have walls when you attack it. Make sure you have enough troops for the attack. There's not a magical number here, as much of it depends on your difficulty level, the power of the enemy, walls or no walls, and the terrain around the city. You're going to need more units on higher difficulty levels since you get a combat penalty against the AI. Think about how you'll attack the city and where you'll position your troops. Try and place them on hexes that give defensive bonuses, hills, forests, and jungle. It's better to put most cities under siege as well, so it can't heal during your attack. So include that in your attack plan. A city siege is a still misunderstood mechanic in the game, so let's talk about that for a minute. Putting a city under siege means the city will no longer heal at the end of the turn. It's denoted by the red heart next to the city name. To understand city siege, you have to understand the zone of control mechanic. Zone of control is a mechanic that limits movements of enemy units of all types. Zone of control is also applied differently depending on the type of unit that you're looking at. Melee units apply zone of control to the hex they're in and one ring of surrounding hexes that the melee unit is in. If an enemy unit moves into a hex under zone of control, it loses movement turns. Siege units apply zone of control only for the hex they are in. This means an enemy unit can move next to a siege unit and not lose movement. Ranged units, which include archers, crossbows, field cannons, and machine guns, also apply zone of control only to the hex they are in. There is a level 3 promotion for these units that gives ranged units zone of control like a melee unit, which extends to the hexes that touch that ranged unit. You can't see which hexes you control with zone of control, but you do see which hexes are controlled by the enemy. And these are the hexes that get outlined by red triangles. This means that enemies control that hex, and if you moved into it, your unit is going to lose its movement turns. It's possible that two different civilizations can have zone of control over the same hex, even if they're at war. Note that rivers break zone of control, so a melee unit in a river hex will not have zone of control of a hex on the other side of that river. Now back to city siege. In order to put a city under siege, you have to have zone of control over all hexes surrounding the city. This can be any combination of melee, ranged, siege, and boats. Mountains do not need zone of control since they are impassable for most units in civs. If you do not greatly overpower your opponent, you should really consider what you need to do to put the city under siege to take it faster. A couple other things to consider. What are you going to do with the city once you capture it? If you're going to raise it, you don't need to worry about loyalty, but if you plan on occupying the city, you have to think about how you will protect the city from a loyalty flip. If there are large cities around your target city, you might have to take other cities first. Also be prepared with governors and being able to move them into the city. You might need to put policy cards in place as well to give you an additional loyalty bonus for those governors. Once you have your battle plan, make sure you've got the right mix of military units for the defense you're up against. You'll want some form of siege weapons against walled cities, unless you have battering rams or siege towers in an early era war. It's good to have a ranged unit or two to help take out enemy units and add damage to walls and cities. A mounted unit or two is also nice to have for those almost dead enemies that try and run away. Once you have your units in your battle plan, it's time to go to war. Move your troops into position and attack as appropriate. If there's a ranged unit in an AI controlled city, you can usually draw them out by moving all of your units 1 hex out of range of that city. This will allow you to kill the ranged unit so your attacking forces don't take as much damage. Fighting a city without walls is pretty straightforward. Put it under siege if necessary, attack with ranged units first and melee units second. Continue attacking until you take the city. Make sure you don't let your melee units get too low that they're at risk of dying, because I can spawn units at any point, and if you have melee that are really low, they run the risk of dying. You could lose siege on the city, and it could make your whole attack fall apart. If the city has walls, you will need something to address the walls unless you're well ahead of the enemy and greatly overpower them. You have a few options depending on what you've researched and the time that you're going to war. Siege weapons are available in all eras and do extra damage to city walls. If it's still early in the game, battering rams are the first units that you can build to help take down walls. These units don't attack themselves, but buff early melee units when they attack walls, and they are sufficient to take a walled city with a handful of melee and no siege or ranged units. Battering rams will eventually upgrade to siege towers. Siege towers allow melee units to skip the walls completely and attack the city's health directly, leaving the walls mostly intact. Couple of things. Note, siege towers do not work against Renaissance walls, and even if you do leave the walls intact, they will be destroyed when you take the city, so there's no benefit in keeping the walls or anything like that by using siege towers, but they do allow you to burn the city down pretty quickly since you don't have to take the wall hit points down to 0. One concept to keep in mind when attacking cities is using what I call a meat shield. Now this works against AI cities, obviously doesn't work against people, but against AI cities, they will usually attack ranged and siege units first, and those can die pretty quickly and limit your ability to burn down walls. But an AI will usually attack a damaged melee unit over a full health ranged or siege unit. So to take advantage of this mechanic, send melee units in first and keep ranged and siege units out of range for the first turn. The AI will attack a melee unit first, and then on the next turn, keep it fortified. Don't do anything with it. It'll stay damaged. It'll get a small heal, and the AI will continue to attack that melee unit. Then you can move in your ranged and siege units to get full health attacks on the city, and they won't be taking any damage at all, so you're not going to have to move a unit out in a couple of turns because it's about to die so that it heals. You can just have your ranged and siege full health, continually bombarding the city while you've got a melee unit taking the damage from the city attacks and getting small heals every turn. Always put your attacking units on mountains, forests, or jungle if possible. This gives them extra defense in case they do get attacked. Continue to attack the city until it falls. Before moving on that final turn, think about all of the units that might take the city and ask yourself if there's any advantage to taking the city with a particular unit. For example, if you have a unit that's got some significant damage but is still strong enough to take the city, consider using other units to weaken the city down so that badly damaged unit can still take the city, but then he will be in the city after you take it. And what that does is it protects that unit from enemies that might be around the city that could ranged attack or even melee attack that unit and kill it. Because with it being in the city, that means any attacks towards that unit are going to hit the city first. Just something to consider, not something that you always have to do, but it's one of those things that can make a difference. And when you try and move up in difficulty levels, you have to start paying attention to more mechanics in order to win those games. This is one opportunity to do that. If you have any questions on attacking cities that didn't get answered, drop them down below in the comments. I'll be sure to get back to you.